Good morning, everybody. You are listening to K-Talk Radio, 1640 AM. This is the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I'm your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and our special guest today is Elizabeth Cordero. Thank you for joining me today, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Yoshi, for the invitation.
I am very excited to chat with you today, and I had the privilege of hearing you speak a few nights ago on Thursday for the Utah Valley Real Estate Investing Association, which, by the way, she is on the board.
Correct.
We sit on the board together, and had a special privilege of getting to know her. And my goodness, what you shared the other day was so inspiring. It was so much fun to hear, which is why I'm so excited for the listeners to basically get to hear your story. If you're somebody out there who needs a kick in the butt, you know, you're just not hungry, you want stuff, you want success, but you're not hungry, or maybe you know somebody who could use a kick in the butt, you know, you definitely are going to want to stay tuned to this show and listen to Elizabeth's story. You know, if you were born in the United States of America and had the privilege of going to public schools here, private schools here, I mean, you've just had a huge head start over a lot of people in this world, right? And so what is so amazing is Elizabeth is from Mexico.
Correct.
And I'm going to let her tell her story, but you know, if she can learn another language, learn how to read I can't even, contracts. Like I didn't like learning how to read contracts, and I learned English. I mean, that's all I know is English, right? and I have to read English contracts, and it's like, holy cow! I can't even imagine going to another country and being given a real estate contract in that language, and now being expected to execute, right? So let's dive in. Before we dive into this, actually, we're going to talk about pursuing your passion, because that's exactly what Elizabeth has done. And we're going to talk about how you don't need all the answers ahead of time to succeed, right? So many people think they need to know everything before they even take action. We'll also be hearing about a nightmare story and the lesson that can be learned from that mistake, from that nightmare story, and so much more. So lots to talk about today, but I'm going to let Elizabeth take over here because the story is so amazing. So Elizabeth, can you please share with us your extremely inspiring story?
Okay, Joshi, thank you so much for the invitation. I hope that I inspired some of your listeners. I actually came here to the United States when I was 14 years old.
Okay.
I was born and raised in Mexico in a very, very small town of like 1,500 people.
Got it.
Where I'm from is very unsafe. I had the opportunity to go back about, a few months ago after 23 years.
Wow.
It took me 23 years to go back.
Wow.
And so I want everybody to know that everything I've accomplished, I recently won the 40 Under 40 award.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
And so it's been a big change for me from where I come from. But where I come from is I was born of a mother of four.
Okay.
My mom was a single mom. My dad had, told my mom that she could take two of her children, and keep some money, or take all of us and have nothing. And I remember my mom always telling us this story, like she's like, my kids are not fruits. I'm taking all of my children.
Right.
And that's when our journey starts. My mom is by herself. She has no support from brothers and sisters. And then my grandmother passed away. And so my mom is working really hard, 2-3 jobs in Mexico, like cleaning, doing laundry, all this stuff, just to feed us enough. So by the time she earns some money, she already owes, the next 2 weeks. So she's always in debt. And sometimes I remember that people coming to like what I do today. People would come knock on the door and say, "Pay me the rent."
Yes,
my mom say, "Tell the lady I'm not here." We'll go outside and be like, "My mom says she's not home."
Right.
And so, due to the circumstances, how we're living, we have an uncle that goes to Mexico and says, "Hey, there's a lot of money in America." So my mom starts this journey, and she says, "Can you help me get on the other side?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll help you." So my mom sells the little thing she has, borrows some money, buys a train ticket, and makes it to the border. When she's there, she calls my uncle and says, "Hey, I'm already here. I need your help to go to America."
Yeah.
And he tells my mom that he's not going to help her.
Oh, no.
And she's there. She has no money to go back and no money to move forward. She's very persistent. She stays there. She cleans hotels, She's not making any money.
Yeah.
And so finally she convinces this smuggler to bring it to the United States.
Wow.
Not for free, but without payment.
Yeah.
And I think I remember her saying, you know, he told me I've never done anything good in my life, so I'm gonna do this for you. But you better pay me, and you better be at 6 p.m. at 6, whatever time at this place.
Yes.
But you cannot wear sandals, and my mom only had sandals.
Oh.
And so I think somebody gifted her like 20 pesos to buy like the cheapest tennis shoes she could afford.
Oh my gosh.
And that's how she starts her journey to America. In the meantime, we're by ourselves in Mexico, struggling as well. I mean, she left us with an aunt. Our aunt kicked us out of the house.
Oh no.
And so we're just going from place to place. We're kids. My mom's not sending us money, remember, she's
Right.
not working. And so at that point, my mom makes it to the United States, but takes a little bit of time before she can earn some money, to
Yes.
send to us. We actually are left there, and there's this man that had been in our lives before, and what seemed like a good, I don't know, like it seemed like a good act of kindness. He knew that we were struggling, and so he brought us into his home.
Mhm.
And we were happy because we no longer have to like struggling, in our country. It's very
Right.
unsafe for little children to be in Mexico on their own.
Got it.
And but that wasn't a good story because he would like take advantage of us, and so it was just one of those things. But then my mom sent for us.
Gotcha.
And that's when our life really started changing. At this point, she sent us money for a bus ticket, and that's like a year or two later after she came.
Wow.
So she sent us for a bus. She sent us with a bus. So now we've like already improved from train to bus.
Yes.
And so we started journey to the United States, and my sister and I'm 14 at the time.
Okay.
And we actually obviously came undocumented. And the reason why people do it, and I want people to understand, is that if we had money to get a visa,
Yeah.
we would probably not need to come here.
Right.
People that have money stay there.
Yeah, yeah.
And so mostly in Mexico, the case is that poor people are the ones that come here.
Right.
And so I, obviously always honor my mom's courage, because where
Yeah.
I'm from, it's such a small town that you're really like just eating beans, and the chickens are roaming around, and you're throwing food. So we're like from very, very poor background beginnings. And so after she she sent us to the border, there's
Yeah.
this guy that shows up. This is the smuggler that comes and says, okay, you guys are gonna come, I'm gonna be the one taking you, so leave all of your belongings at the hotel. And we brought all of our stuff, like our best things,
Yeah.
our shirts, our best, like, they weren't probably that great, but you remember that your most
Yes.
treasured, because over there, I remember trading my jeans with my friends in order for me to wear different jeans. Like, you have green, I have
yeah.
blue, let's trade, I want to, and that's
Right.
how you like wear different clothing
Yes.
with it. So I remember having to leave my most precious clothing there. And then we obviously are able to come, and the only thing I remember bringing is just my birth certificate in case I died, because there's the risk that you could die, and you have to hide it too, and a little bit of money. So as we're starting our journey and start walking the desert, we start seeing different people taking us from place to place.
Got it.
And then eventually we get to a point where we have people that are waiting for immigrants to pass by. They know that's where they're going to cross. They know you may be bringing a little bit of money because you're trying to go to the United States.
Right.
And this is a place where you can get raped, robbed, killed, like for
Wow.
a tiny amount of money, because really you don't have a lot. But
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
you're coming here.
Right.
And so we almost got taken into human trafficking. The guy really insisted on separating my sister, myself, the young girls,
Yeah.
separate from the group.
Yeah.
But my mom had told us, like, you do not
Yes.
separate from the group.
Wow.
And that's when I'm starting to like tell the guy, like, no. And I'm only 14 years old, and in a way, I didn't understand the gravity of the situation.
Yeah.
I just knew that I was gonna. I yearned so much to see my mother because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen her for so long. I just knew I was gonna come see my mom,
Right.
And so I told the guy, like, I'm angry, and I said, no, we're staying with the group, and
Yeah.
and I think because I started get agitated, they thought, if we get caught, they go to jail for life, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
they let us go with the group,
Ah,
and so
thank goodness.
we're being exchanged, from group to person, but at the time I had to cross the border. By the time and I got detained by the immigration, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I got detained by immigration, but luckily I was still on the Mexican territory. So he was on the American side, I was on the Mexican, but I was almost there.
Yeah.
And he's like, you guys need to go back. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we're not going to go back. We just work days, man. Like, come on. And so we wait for him to leave, right?
Yeah.
And then we actually start our journey back, right? And at some point you have to hide. I mean, people they go through tunnels. Like everybody's story is different.
Right.
And so we waited for the guy to go. They kind of know exactly how long it takes for people to go away. And then that's when I grabbed my sister on the hand and we run this busy freeway. Cars are not stopping and they're going fast. It's like a major highway.
Yes.
And so we run through that and then we get to the store. And at that store, there's this older lady. And she asked us, she knew what we were doing. We're smelling, we don't look good, we're hungry, we haven't had food, we haven't showered. And she said to us, would you like me to order a taxi for you? And at that moment, that lady has our lives in her hand because she can call immigration and we go right back to where we came from. And so, but she didn't. She actually did call a taxi.
Wow.
And then from that place, at that store, we pretended to be shopping.
Yeah.
And I remember this lady wanted us to buy stuff for her. She's like, buy me. But my mom said, hide the little money you have.
Yes.
So from that point on, you get taken into another house here in the United States. And in that house, you're kidnapped, right? Until they don't pay for the other half of you, you're not allowed to go.
Interesting.
And you have to stay there and work. You cannot stay there and sleep until somebody, you got to eat. And they're not buying you food.
Right.
And so I actually have a very dear family member. She got stripped from her clothes because she tried to escape, and because one of the guys wanted to rape her.
Oh my
gosh. And she tried to escape, and when she tried to escape, they caught her. And so they brought her back into the room, they stripped the clothes. So not good things are happening in those rooms,
Yes.
Luckily for us, I feel very lucky because my mom had already, by the way we're trying to cross the border, my mom had already sent somebody for us.
Got it.
And so as he's arriving, so it's almost immediately, right? We arrive to this place, and the guy's asking us, where's the money? Where you have more money? They're trying to take your money. People are trying to take advantage of you all throughout your journey. And so finally the guy arrives. He brings us to my mom. And the way I remember seeing this gum, this fluorescent gum, that to me I was the coolest thing I've ever seen. I hadn't seen a water faucet. I did not. I was at a hotel. I think it was a hotel where it was.
Yeah.
And I remember not being able to open the water faucet because I didn't know how to use one.
Wow.
That's how, my grandma had these houses, oh man, what's the word? Just when it rains, they sound a lot. They're not houses concrete made or anything
like tin?
Yeah, I think so. And so, tin metal.
Yeah.
And that's how we start. That's how I started my journey here, and that's how I really arrived to the United States. I mean, I didn't know the currency. My mom had to sit down with me and say, this is a quarter in her Spanish. In Spanish, they sounded differently.
Yes.
This is a quarter. This is a dime. This is how you pay.
Right.
And I don't want to admit this, but I remember doing things I did back in Mexico, I don't know, maybe stealing for food and things like that.
Right.
And so I had to learn those ways too. But what happens is that you're surrounded by other immigrants. And we lack the education to come together into the culture sometimes,
Right.
Because we don't have anybody else guiding us. Who's guiding us is other immigrants that are just also trying to figure out.
Right.
Well, then I arrived to the United States. And my mom's living in this tiny house on the east side. And there's 1721 male immigrants.
Oh my gosh.
We're a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house. You know the Judge Memorial Catholic School?
Yeah.
By there, one of these tiny houses on the top.
Wow.
And the guy owned the home, he lived in California. And he didn't know there were this many people in his home, okay? He had no clue.
Okay.
So one day he wants to come and do an inspection. But he lived so far away, we never thought he would, And so he comes to the house. And then he's like, I'm going to do this special. And then he decides to stay. And for whatever reason, he's like, I want to stay here. It's his house.
Yeah.
And he kind of does things differently. This is 23 years ago. He can stay in the house because he rents the house.
Right.
And he's rented to us. So he obviously knows that we're not going to go call the police or anything.
Yeah.
He stays in the house, and then obviously we knew he was coming. People start hiding, right? They hide in the backyard, they hide on the top of the roof, they don't show up. And then the days go by and you can no longer hide.
Yeah.
So it's that you have to start coming out.
Right.
So people start showing up out of nowhere from the roof, from the yard. And then he realizes how many people are there, and then he gets mad. He's like, you guys gotta pay me all this money. Well, happens to be we were all paying money, but one of the guys actually took the money and sent it to Mexico.
Oh, wow.
And so, eventually, my mother, she realizes that she has 2 young daughters with all of these males.
Yeah.
And it's not good. They're getting drunk. I mean, it's disgusting stuff is happening, like they're older adults and they don't have a family, so they try to like maybe drink sometimes, do things like this. And she decides to rent an apartment. I was very fortunate that because I was so young, I had to go to school, right? I had to. But my sister wasn't so much. She went immediately to work at a hotel, cleaning rooms. And I would go like, on the weekends, on like summertime, to help my mother. And she rented our first apartment that she rented. We had 0 furniture, nothing.
Oh, wow.
We rented an empty apartment.
Yes.
And I remember my mom, it makes and my mom used to give me like $1 here and there. I was always a saver.
Wow.
And so I would save this little money, and I remember going to the secondhand store and buying our first dishes, and that's what we had first. Our secondhand store used dishes.
Yes.
So that's how and then eventually I go to school, graduate. I can't get a job. I keep getting fired every time because I don't have documents. I lived undocumented for 20 years here.
Wow.
So everything I did in real estate was basically while I was undocumented.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's amazing to when people tell me, and this is why I probably don't have, obviously I'm very compassionate.
Oh, of course.
But when it comes to excuses, I don't handle them well. Hell no.
I can imagine.
This is not how it is.
Yes.
What do you mean you cannot find a way?
Exactly.
Yeah, and so eventually I actually started a cleaning company. I actually meant to because I couldn't get a job.
Yes.
I started working at a company cleaning it was they did medicine, they create medicine.
Yeah.
And I worked with scientists and researchers, and they will tell me every day, why don't you go to school? Well, they didn't know I couldn't because I didn't have documents, because once you graduate from high school back then, you couldn't continue education. Now you can.
Oh,
now if you don't have documents, you can if you graduated from high school here. But back then you couldn't.
I see.
And I couldn't tell them, like, I'm undocumented. So I'd be like, I don't like to go to school. But it was one of my dreams to go to school.
Yeah,
Yeah. And they would always tell me, like, you gotta read books. You gotta read books, read books. And they said it so much. And where I cleaned, I was like, probably in 2 hours I could be done.
Yeah.
So I go to the library and, like, get some books. And that's when I start shifting my mind. But not yet. I was still afraid. My English wasn't so good either, right? I had to learn the language.
Yeah.
I actually was putting English as a second language on the very, very low level. Like, this girl knows nothing about English, Like, remember she showed me pictures of a rabbit?
Yeah.
And she'd be like, this rabbit? And I'd be like, next. And then like point, and she like she got like frustrated, like she's pointing all these pictures. I know 0 of those pictures, and I'm like embarrassed. And she like I can tell her frustration. Like, what do you mean you don't know rabbit in English?
Right.
Everybody knows rabbit in English. And so I start doing this compound. Well, in the afternoons, the people be like, can you come clean my house?
Yes.
And I remember this lady paying me $40 to go clean her house for like 8 hours.
Wow.
And so that was, for me, that was a lot of money because it was free, pretty much tax-free, $40. I was making like $6 an hour. I would have to work 10 hours to make 60.
Right.
And now I did work 8 hours, but it still felt like, every cent count. I could not buy a soda because I wanted to go to school, so I was saving for that.
Wow.
So if I bought that, it would be just too much. I mean, it literally will take I was really good at budgeting. I knew every cent where it went. And so that's how eventually, I would buy like my dresses at a yard sale for 25 cents, like anything at the yard sale. I was still very frugal.
Yeah.
I still have all the ways from where I was raised and born in that survival mode.
Yeah.
Eventually, they start hiring me, You know, I get my sister to come aboard. I get my mother. Once my mom comes and show us, because she's worked for cleaning companies before, how it really gets done.
Yeah.
That's when the company goes booming, right? And that's where we have more and more and more. And then I start hiring people. I ended up having that. I started with a residential, then I went into commercial. I started having that company for 12, 14 years.
Wow.
I ended up gifting it to a employee of mine because she was really good, and I wanted to, you know, like give back.
Yeah.
And it changed her life, you
Holy
know.
cow.
And so, and that's when I get into real estate.
Got it. Oh my gosh. What an amazing story. I mean, seriously, that's insane. So, just out of curiosity, you were living by Judge Memorial High School. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Highland High School because they have the English as a second language program. I was not supposed to go there, I think, because I was supposed to go to West High or whatever. I don't know, because we kept moving so much.
Yeah,
you know? And but because I didn't speak any English, I had to be at Highland High School because they had a great English as a second language program.
Got it. And how old was your younger sister?
No, she was older.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was 14. I want to say she was like 18, 19.
Got it.
So she was older than I was. But my sister's, you know, very sensitive. She has just really good heart. So she probably was very, you know, afraid to go through the journey because you got to remember, like, we are all comfortable with the way we live.
Of course.
And if I told you right now, leave everything you have right now.
Kidding.
And go to China, but you're gonna have to cross the sea.
Yeah.
And you don't know what to expect. You don't know who's gonna wait for you, where they're gonna take you.
Seriously. And at 14.
And at 14, you know, like
gosh.
will you send your son right now for that journey?
Yeah, seriously. I have a niece that's 16. I wouldn't send her, you know, at all. It'd just be terrifying.
But you know what? It's the love of your family. Because
absolutely.
Otherwise, I'm gonna tell you this: if I had stayed in Mexico, I probably would have not done the things I did today.
Absolutely.
There's no opportunity for us, you know.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a whole different story.
Yeah, I love how you said that there's no room for excuses. I mean, there really isn't. There really isn't. I know some people that have been trying to get into real estate. They hate their 9 to 5. You know, 6, 7 years later, they still haven't done one thing. I mean, I'm like, have you even submitted an offer? Have you called a seller? Have you called the for sale by owner on KSL? No, because I'm still studying videos on YouTube. I'm like, oh, jeez, you know. You know,
it's funny you say that because recently I got a phone call from a friend and he said, oh, I just finished my master. I'm going to my PhD. And I said, when are you going to work? And he said, oh, no, after my PhD. I said, remember, there's nothing more after PhD. At one point, you're going to have to go to work, you know? But sometimes we use things as an excuse, you know, not to do things. But as easy as it is, I mean, like I spoke that day, I always been fearful of taking that action, but yet I had to.
Yeah.
I remember when I was signing my very first flip. I was signing it in the trunk of a car with Trevor. You know Trevor, right?
Yeah.
He sold me my first flip, maybe because it didn't make sense for anybody else, you know? But luckily it worked for me. And I'm signing in the trunk of his car. He's signing the offer right there. And I'm looking and I'm terrified. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know. I didn't even know how to run comps.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the areas. I came from cleaning toilets, you know.
Yeah.
Recently, I was at the accepted at the 10,000 small business program, and one of my they give you like no, it's not like a mentor, but a business advisor.
Okay.
One of my business advisors came over to a house because they got to see what you do.
Oh.
And so I was renovating my very first home that I bought.
Yeah.
And he looked at the house and he said, you know, how much you owe in this house? And I said, this house is paid for.
Yeah.
And he said to me, how do you do that? You know, he was surprised.
Yeah.
And I said, do you know how many toilets I had to clean to pay this house? And he was shocked because he said, you know what, out of all the students, I've never had anybody being so humble to say this. And I said, I'm not being humble, I'm telling you the truth.
Right.
You know?
Oh my gosh.
That's what it took to pay my first home.
Wow. And, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up because the other night you talked about how you had 3 houses free and clear before you went and bought houses in Texas free and clear. You know, I wanted to ask you how did you get started in real estate, but actually I'm more curious on, because this was in a very short period of time. Most people take 30 years to pay off a house, free and clear. You had 3 paid off in how little time?
My first one I paid in a year and a half.
Incredible! I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, talk about like, you know, you're saying you're being frugal and saving. I mean, that's like how you have to do it.
Correct.
You know what I mean? There's sacrifices. You aren't buying that soda pop that you said you're not buying because you are paying off a house that quickly.
Yeah, but you know what? The amazing thing about this is if you save at the beginning, and I highly recommend, obviously it's never late to start.
Yeah.
But if you're young and you're strong, go work. You know, first of all, when you're very young, I want to say 10 to 20 or 25, you're working hard, but you're also learning. You're hungry for something, your passion.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it will pay off eventually because now I get to buy whatever soda drink I want.
Right,
you know
right,
I mean?
Exactly.
But it takes a lot of sacrifice, and sometimes people are not willing. I mean, I had tenants that are mad at me because of this or that. Like, I had people spit at me because they don't want to pay me. Like, things that you have to go through, sacrifices.
Yes.
And people are not used to that. People are not used to know. They're comfortable at home sitting, watching the TV and complaining about themselves. But they're going to take responsibility of saying, you know, I want this. Let's plan how to do it. I'm going to tell you, there's always a way to do something. There's always a way if you really want it so bad to get it.
I love it. I totally agree with you, and I love it. You know, I'm the son of 2 immigrants myself. My mom's from Mexico. I don't know. Did you know that? Did you know I'm half Mexican? Okay. I didn't know if you knew I was half Mexican. And my dad's from Japan, right? And so they met here in Salt Lake City, and they met at West High School in the English class, night school, late at night. So I always tell people my first language, because my first language was between the two of them learning English, was broken English, right? That's my first language.
I love it.
Me and my sister grew up saying a lot of words wrong throughout elementary school.
You also had to go to ESL school.
Yes. And so, you know, I really appreciate the struggle that they had to go through. You know, my dad came on a boat from Japan with $300 in his pocket, right? And was very similar in that he saved. He was not a spender. And my mother came here, and when she came to America, she had a brother, ironically, who lived in Sugar House. And so she went and stayed with her brother. My cousins ended up going to Highland High School too, actually. So, yes, you know, the whole excuse thing, you know, I think I don't buy it either, because I watched my parents start up a business. For a lot of people who may be listening on this call, my parents opened up Cami Hair, which is, he sold it now. They're in their retirement phase, but one of the most successful hair salons in the entire state of Utah, right across the street from the Cottonwood Mall. So some people may have gotten their haircut there who are listening, but they worked really hard to get there, right? And so I think one of the best things that I took from my parents growing up was watching the work ethic, and that's what I think is going to be beautiful. Your kids are going to have this work ethic, seeing an example like your parent, like you, from you.
And you know what, I want to tell you this. It may sound like, oh yeah, it's so easy, but it's not. You know,
Yes.
I would have to wake up at 3 in the morning in the snow time and go clean buildings before the people showed up. I was there cleaning the buildings, making the appointments for the clients, going and giving bids, making the checks, everything by hand, paying the people, doing the bank accounts, taking care of the house, like taking care of tenants. Because immediately as I bought my first home, I put people in my basement, I put a roommate on my other house. Like, all the money I was making for work, all the money I was making there, it was like, where do I get money to be able to pay what I want to pay? And eventually, as I got a HELOC on that house, then HELOC works differently, as you know.
Yeah.
Like, it's easier to pay.
Yeah.
That's what that became a blessing for me.
Right.
And so, but buying my first home was yet another story. I don't know if I told it that day, but I went to like about 12 different banks. I went to Science, Wells Fargo, like every bank in the city. I went to, because you know what? In my ignorance, I believed that they wouldn't know I was undocumented. So they'll say, "Come bring me all these papers," and I will bring everything to them. And then they'll say, "Oh, yeah, it looks great." And then, "Oh, your social security doesn't work." And I'm like, one day they're not gonna find out. You know what I mean? I just like, innocence, you know? Like, how they're not gonna. And I kept going and going and going and going. And when I was about to give up, somebody said, "I think there's a bank that's still giving loans with an IT number. We get an IT number to pay tax with." And we do pay tax, by the way.
Yes.
And so that number, and so I went to the bank, and at that point I'm tired. I'm like, okay, I gotta tell this man, because if he doesn't, he's not gonna give it to me. I did not want it with a fake social. I knew that if I was near my house, it had to be with my own name and my own number.
Yes.
And so I went to the guy and I say, Chris Colch, he changed my life. That guy I'm so grateful for, just like Matt, who became my mentor eventually. But he gave me that opportunity. He gave me that break in life. He trusted me. I went to him and just say, hey, I'm undocumented. I'm self-employed. I don't have any credit. I buy everything cash. I have no debt.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we do loans. And I said, oh, you know, and I have an IT number.
Yeah.
And he's like, we do loans. He's like, but only with 20% down. And he's like, how much is the house you wanting to buy? And I said, well, I haven't looked. And he's like, how much do you have down? You have to have 20% down. I didn't even know how much 20% down was, to be honest.
Sure.
My math was so bad. I'm still so bad at math. I don't even know what, you know, I had to learn what ROI was like years after I was investing.
Right.
I was guided by common sense. People have no excuse.
Yeah.
I didn't know math. You know, I still don't today, and I still do investing. You know, obviously I've learned what's necessary, but there's not. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then the guy said, how much do you have down? And I said, I have $60,000.
Yeah.
I thought I was short of money. You know? So, he wants more. And he's like, oh, I can give you a loan. You know, and so he gave me a loan. Then I go out with the realtor to buy the first home. I love this story because he was my client. I cleaned his house. Peter
nice.
He's the best realtor ever. He was very honest. He helped me. He guided me through. He taught me some things. Like, he was a good person.
Yes.
He is. He still is, because he's still alive. And I was afraid he'll find out I'm undocumented, okay? Because if he finds out I'm undocumented, I'm cleaning for his whole family, then they're gonna know I'm undocumented, they're gonna fire me, you know? So the whole time I'm terrified. Like, he looked at me, I remember, and saying, Elizabeth, are you okay? Like, he probably thinks I'm terrified to buy a house, but I'm terrified of him finding out I'm documented. And then eventually we find this house, we put it under contract, and, you know, it takes a few months. And as I'm sitting down at the closing table, the escrow officer comes to me and looks at the numbers and says, where did you get $60,000 from? And you know, I nicely, and I was very shy, and I nicely said, oh, you know, I work for it. And the lady's like, well, I cannot take this identification because I think at the time we only had like the Mexican ID consular card. And she said, you got to bring me your green card. And, or I got Utah ID, but I didn't have it. So I'm like extremely scared. So I signed it. You can see my first home. I still own that home today. But the documents, the signatures all like scribbled because, you know, I was so afraid, like, oh my gosh, she's gonna call immigration. My entire stay in the United States, I was afraid of immigration. So like, it's so shaky. I was panicking. I was afraid, like, she's going to like deport me. Little did I know that now I bring my passport to every closing just to make fun. You know? I'm waiting for somebody to still ask me for my green card. Yet that haven't happened. And then I go back to the bank and I said, hey, Chris. And he said, what happened? And I said, I don't want a house anymore. He said, why? So the lady wants me to get a green card. And I told her I don't have one. And it's not like I go to a store and I get it. It's very difficult to get. At that time, I already been 16, 14 years here without one. And I said, I've been here for 14 years. I can't. And he said, let me call right now. The banker took the time to call the title company to tell them, I took the risk. You guys just need to notarize this. Why are you asking my client that? And then they talk to them, I'm like, this man is with one person after, and I'm there sitting scared, like, oh, when I go back, I'm definitely getting deported, you know? And then he's like, go now. Bring your, do you have a passport? And I said, I have a Mexican passport. Go again with your Mexican passport. And then I go back and I'm like fearful. Here, Chris sent me. He said to bring my passport, and I shyly give it to the lady, and her attitude had changed. She's like, oh my gosh, yes, it's okay. I'll give my back. And she goes to the passport, and that's how I bought my first home.
Amazing.
While I was undocumented.
Amazing.
But that changed my life because from that point on, real estate was my thing.
Yes, that is awesome. That is awesome. So that first house, so I met you, gosh, probably 8, well, my son wasn't born, my son's 5, so probably 7, 8 years ago at SLREA, Salt Lake Real Estate Investing Association.
Correct.
Had you already bought that first house at that point?
Yeah, I bought that house in 2009, so probably had I still have it today, you know? And I bought that house, and then Peter, who was my realtor, he told me, you know, there's this thing called HELOC. You should look into it because I had gotten the house with equity. He said, you should look into this. And I'm always good at listening and good advice. And
Yeah.
acting on it.
Yes.
Not only listening, but acting on it.
That is so key.
So I got a second, got the HELOC because it took me a year and a half to pay off the house. I was like literally putting all my money into that house. Everything, every single cent I got.
Yeah.
Except obviously I had to buy food.
Right.
But then I was renting my rooms and I had so my business money went to my house.
Wow.
And then my rental money, for paying electrical and all other things.
Yes.
And if somebody needed money, I will lend them money and will charge them a little bit. I will go sell shoes at the Swami so that we can have a little bit of extra money. Like I did all sorts of things, eventually paid it off, and this is now 2010 about.
Yes.
And that's when the market crashed.
Yeah.
And there's this other house for $80,000, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom by the Salt Lake Community College.
Yeah.
And then at that time I had another realtor because I don't know why I didn't call the first one. Yeah, I should have. It would have been better, but. I called this other person and I bought this house for $80,000, used that HELOC, and because the way it's set up, it allowed me to pay it fast too. And I think within a year I was also done with that one.
Amazing.
Yeah, and then the third one I did the exact same thing. Take that HELOC. I still use that HELOC today.
Wow.
That's like I got the money, I pay the house, and then I take it back. It's like my candy.
It's like your own bank.
It's like you know what? It's the best bank
Yeah.
at that time. My first loan, when everybody was getting 14%, I got like 9% for my first house, and that was like a deal.
Yes.
Getting 9% was a really good deal. I
Yes.
really love this Highland Credit Union because it's changed my life.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up with the third one, and then I realized something's got to change. I cannot be always like working so hard, paying this house. There's got to be a better way.
Sure.
And then as soon as I got my documents,
Uh-huh.
the first time, because it's been many changes,
Yes.
I got in with DACA, with President Obama, the Deferred Action of Childhood Arrivals.
Got it.
The very first day my Social Security arrived,
Oh.
I went online to my computer and I researched the cheapest real estate school in Utah.
Oh,
And
nice.
that's how I got into real estate. And then eventually I got into the RIAs, which was a blessing.
Yes.
I met Trevor,
Yes.
who worked for Matt. Matt Atkinson became a mentor of mine, and he still is.
Yes.
I admire him greatly because he sold me my first deal, my seller finance deal, my first flip. They literally pushed me into it, because you can go so much, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
go, and then at one point you got to take action.
Yeah.
And I had the money because I still had my other business.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have money, I want to do, but I'm afraid. I don't know what I
Yes.
take. When I bought my first seller finance deal, I was very scared. I didn't know, I had to do an inspection. I didn't know, much. Even though I went so much,
Yeah.
when the time comes that you have to do it,
Yeah.
you're panic,
Of course.
And I remember sitting outside of the title company thinking, maybe I shouldn't sign.
Yeah.
Well, I ended up selling the property, put a little money into it and getting back $92,000 or something, a few years later. Not a long time later.
Right.
Maybe a year and a half later.
Yeah.
Because the house had already a lot of equity into it.
Yes.
But when I was outside, I was so fearful.
Yes.
I just thought, maybe I don't want to sign.
Right.
What if the roof falls down? What if, what if I can't? But then I used common sense. I didn't know real estate.
Yeah.
I didn't know areas. I didn't know anything. But
Yeah.
common sense. If I have 5 bedrooms and my mortgage payment is $900,
Yes.
then if I charge $300 per room, I
Yeah.
can still pay my mortgage.
Right.
I can still make it,
Yeah.
And that's what made me go forward. And so
Amazing.
it was just common sense.
Yes, $92,000. I mean, in a few years. I mean, the last time I looked, and it's been several years, but the average American income, North American, so included Canada, I think was $47,000 per household.
Yeah.
And households mean typically two people.
Wow, that's sad.
Yeah, so if you take 47,000 divided into 2, that average American household is about $25,000, and you made $92,000 in a few years, purchasing a property, taking action.
Correct.
Trusting in your mentor. Matt Atkinson's mentored a lot of people, myself
he's the
included,
best,
right?
yeah.
And so trusting in your mentor, knowing you got a good one, that was a lot of faith that led you to where you are today, which is amazing.
Correct.
Amazing. So if you could, I'm super curious. So it's just like I freaking love the fact that you had 3 houses paid off free and clear in such a short time, and most people take 1 year or 30 years to do one house, right?
Correct.
So that first flip that you ever did, let's chat a little bit about. Well, how long did you hold it? If you don't mind sharing some numbers, how much you made, what you put into it, because this is your first. It's like I don't know if you ever knew, but like in an old career, I used to be a hairstylist to the stars, right?
Oh, can you do my hair? I want to be starched.
And so for anyone who's listened to my show before knows that I used to be Anderson Cooper's personal hairstylist for 6 years, and Matthew Broderick was one of my clients as well. And I'm relating this because you're talking about you go to all this education and then doing your first one, even though you went through all this education, you knew a lot, it was now time, right? I went to, at the time, cosmetology school. This was a long, long time ago. I moved out, my parents sent me to London, England. I lived in London for a year, went to Vidal Sassoon Academy, which was arguably the best hair school at the time, and then moved back to America in New York City where I became the hairstylist. But where I'm going with that is, I did a lot of hair training on mannequins. The very first day I had to actually cut a human, I was terrified too. Right? I was cutting a girl, and it was so funny. She was American, because I was in London, and she was visiting on vacation and just came to get a haircut at the school. And so I know what you mean, because I didn't even have money at risk, right? Like cutting her hair, I was just nervous to mess it up.
Yeah, so my very first flip was in West Jordan.
Okay.
And that's the one I remember. At that point I had sold one of the houses that I had paid off.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And then they called me and they said, "We have this house you want." And I said, I had this girl that helped me a lot with like running comps and stuff. She knew more than I did.
Sure.
And she was as afraid as I was. You
Yeah.
know, so she wasn't gonna give me any courage. She just said like, and I said, "I'm gonna do this." And because I knew I was selling a house, so I knew I would have the money. So I actually funded my first flip. And so then I said, yes, I want it. I sent the $5,000 non-refundable earnest money.
Yep.
Then they called me from the person that was buying the house, and they said, oh, by the way, the people can no longer close. They actually don't have, they lost their job.
Oh.
And so you're not going to get any money. And I didn't know much about, I didn't know about flipping. I didn't know about hard money either.
Yeah, yeah.
I was so afraid of everything,
Yeah.
And so I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my goodness, I just lost $5,000 right now. But
Right.
I'm like, what am I going to do? And then I start panicking.
Yes.
But at the time, I think I remember, Matt talking already about hard money and stuff, but I did not want to use it. I was more willing to lose the $5,000.
Yeah.
So then I actually, eventually the sale comes through as things are progressing. I bought my first flip at 100, I want to say 160. I don't remember quite correctly because I've done so many different ones.
Yes,
But it was
sure.
either 160 or 180.
Okay.
So I funded it myself.
Oh my gosh.
And then I put 20,000 into it, also funded by me.
Okay.
So I funded, out of fear, I funded my own deal with $200,000. And then what happened is that I was so lucky. God was on my side, time was on my side, everything was on my side. Well, first of all, I started hiring little people, right? Like, oh, can you go and do demolition? And the guy will come and then he wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, And then the next one, and the next one. And I remember one day, one of the girls that worked for me cleaning, because I was still doing cleaning, by the way. I was still cleaning houses, and I'm doing the two things.
Yes, yes.
In fact, I was showing houses. I was cleaning houses in the morning and showing houses at night.
That's amazing.
I was also an agent. I was busy.
Yes.
I got nominated as the first real estate, Hispanic real estate in the state, whatever, by NAREP.
Yeah.
For a reason. So I was hustling.
Yes.
So I was cleaning houses in the morning. Then my clients didn't know that, like at night I'm like literally calling at my lunchtime to make the appointments to show the houses in the evening.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm calling these guys, and then I'm looking on Facebook, and one of the guys, I see my helper, she has somebody fixing her roof, and I ask her, who's that guy fixing your roof? Because I can tell he's like putting really dedication into it, you know? And she said, he's my cousin. And I said, can you ask him if he can help me with this house? Because guys keep disappearing. I remember my cousin, oh my goodness, my cousin got me out of so much trouble because he knows more, like, he knows how to repair, and I always come crying like, oh, my contract didn't show up, and then he comes to save the day. But then I eventually hired this guy. This guy wants to work for me, so he shows off. He charged me almost nothing and makes this home absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
And me and him become one.
Yes.
And we go at it together. And I mean, one after another. And he's like on it, like me. Like in a month, he's done with the flip.
Holy cow.
In the time, I lost a little time because I lost a few guys at the beginning.
Sure.
And then the market appreciated. So, you know, I was supposed to only get, I don't know, very little. It wasn't like much of a deal.
Yes.
And then Trevor, who sold me the house, MJ Real Estate, bought it back from me with their buyer, and they only asked me for like 1.5% in closing costs or something like that. So I think I made $30,000.
Amazing.
Yeah, after paying commissions and all that stuff. Got all of my money back, man. Like Matt, I can see that you worked. It goes from there, you know. And so that's how I did the very first one. Just funded it myself, went at it. Like, it's not easy for women to be in this business, to be honest.
Sure.
I had to deal with guys that sometimes look at me like, oh, she's a girl, you know, like they can take advantage.
Yeah.
But
and you look young.
Yeah, and I look young, but I'm not that young. And so that's like really how I did the very first flip.
Wow, that's amazing. And $30,000 on your first flip, that's insane. I remember my first flip I made $25,400. $25,400. And I remember thinking like that. This was years ago, right? Like just, oh my gosh, I can't believe you know how many haircuts I'd have to do to make this.
Oh, you know, I never thought about it that way because for me it was just like, it's money has never had a meaning to me.
Yeah.
It's more about the accomplishment. And like, I got that done. Yes, I could do it.
Yes.
Because money is, for me, I see it as a paper. It has no value. You know? This is why you as a person never want to lose your value because of over money.
Yeah.
Because you're worth who you are, but not what you make. Because as you know, we're having a downturn.
Yeah.
Recently, when everything stopped, I panicked because I had money in all these houses, and then what if you lose everything tomorrow?
Sure.
What's left?
Right.
It's you, your soul, who you are, you know?
Yeah.
So I wasn't so excited about it, I just was like accomplished.
Right.
That's how I felt. But, you know, after that, I went just one after another, and then I went out of state too.
Yep.
You know, this is a good story about, I bought a house via email, you know.
Yes.
Some investor out of nowhere. I eventually met him. Luckily, he was a good investor, you know.
Yeah.
I met it years later, like 3 years after I bought the house. They sent an email and they said, hey, we have this house in Florida. I had already traveled a few events, and so I met a few people. And he just said, hey, we have this house for sale. The numbers were great. I'm like, it was $47,000, but it rented at $750 in Utah. You put that as a down payment for selling finance deal. And then you still have the debt.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that doesn't sound bad.
Yeah.
You know, and so I replied, I was so afraid. I mean, really.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that has been afraid the whole time, it has been me. You know? And then I emailed back and I said I want it. I sent my friend. I was afraid, but I trusted my friend. I knew she knew what she was doing more than I did in that state.
Yes.
And she said, this is a good, she told me everything. She was very honest, and we got it down at $37,000.
Oh, wow.
The best tenant ever. I still own the property today. It's worth $120 today.
Oh my gosh.
In 3 years or something. It just went up because the little town started like building like, you know, breweries, and it started becoming like the little city. I'm just like, it's pure luck and dedication and work that's been along all this whole time.
And action, right? Because I mean, you're taking action. You can have all the luck in the world, but if you didn't buy that, you wouldn't have had all that appreciation, right?
Correct.
Action. So I don't know if you noticed, I've been so intrigued with your story that we have about 4 minutes left in the show, and we have not even taken a commercial break because I was like, nope, not taking one today. But what I'd like to do for the last 4 minutes is, can you share some tips with people who are listening on overcoming that fear? Because I love how you've said this whole time, every step you've taken, literally from your journey to America, to your transactions that you're doing, to the success you're having today, there was fear every step of the way, but it didn't paralyze you like it paralyzes so many people. Can you share some tips on how to just overcome the fear to at least take a step forward, take some action?
I think for me it's one, you have to work with yourself. once you work within you, then everything else is gonna come. You have to take leap of faith with yourself, knowing that you are capable of doing that.
Got it.
You gotta surround yourself with people who are doing more, because they're higher than you. They're gonna pull you up rather than like the people bringing you down.
Right.
Because if I ever got into a problem where I had no idea and I had been in those situations, I always go to my mentor, like Matt Atkinson. He knows so much. He's so intelligent. So I go and ask him, hey, what do you think I should do? And they always have answers to my problem. So surround yourself with people that make you feel like that, like safety net.
Yes.
Because we need to, to do that. And honestly, obviously I was a little prepared more, or maybe a little bit more advanced than most, but not really, because I started cleaning toilets. I had to I'm talking about a 20-year journey.
Right.
This is not that just happened overnight.
Sure.
And so I want to say that if you want to do something like that, just get yourself prepared as much as you can. There are no guarantees, but you know what? Be resilient.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't show up for you today, know how to talk to people, know how to know how to ask for help. Maybe at the end, when you're like in really problem, if you start calling your friends, there's somebody that's gonna come help you.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, when you're in that situation, somebody's gotta come and help you, bail you out, pretty much.
Right.
And if you can, don't get greedy, because I've had instances where people are already about to lose their home, but they don't want to sell it for less because they want to make their money. There's always opportunity to make money every day for everyone.
Right.
So don't get caught up into one project. Think bigger. Okay, take it as a learning lesson. I'd rather lose this money or just break even.
Yeah.
But the next one I'm gonna be better, and the next one, and the next one, and have this one plan.
Yeah.
Stick to it. I'm only taking this and that, and so I think at the end of the day, it's for me. It's just believe in yourself, work with yourself, that everything else is gonna come.
Got it. Very cool. I love how you talked about having mentors. I'm the same way. Matt's been a mentor. Randall Wall's been a mentor of mine. It's a safety net. It truly is a safety net. Can you share with people how long you've been in real estate? Because I want people to know how, a 20-year journey, but your real estate journey, I want people to know how quickly you did this in.
I think I'm on my 5th year with my real estate license.
Amazing. I mean, that's incredible. So when you said 20 years, I assume...
I mean, like from business-wise.
Exactly, and I wanted the listeners to understand that
I'm a newbie in real estate. I'm just a beginner.
But with a lot of experience in that short amount of time and having success. Exactly.
Yeah, I gotta go too.
Yes. Okay, Elizabeth, how can people get in touch with you if they need to buy a house, they need to sell a house? Maybe somebody out there who's listening prefers somebody who speaks Spanish, which obviously you do. How can someone get in touch with you?
They can just find me on Facebook, Cordero Investments LLC, or on social media, Instagram. They can also contact me via phone, 801-548-0066, or email me. You'll find my information. I'm very public. If they just Google my name, Elizabeth Cordero in Utah, you'll find lots of my information. You'll find me.
Yes. And Elizabeth's been on TV and radio, so she's going to be all over Google. So, well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming and sharing this amazing, inspiring story.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, you've been listening to Utah Home Sweet Home. This is K-Talk Radio, and I hope everybody has a spectacular Memorial Day weekend.